Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and this is episode 525 of our little queer show, and we're very happy about that. We've been around for a long fucking time, and we're coming at you with another episode this week. We are reviewing yet another Marvel movie, but is this was a good? Was this a good one? We'll talk about it. We'll find out. We are discussing Captain America: Brave New World. A lot to dig into with this one, but before we can jump in, let me introduce you to my wonderful co-host. Jim Pugliafico is with us on the show as usual. Hey, babe, how's it going?
It's going good. We saw a new movie last night. We're going to talk about it today, so that's great. It is a Monday. I'm sorry, it is a Tuesday. We record on Tuesdays early in the week. Still really getting started this week, and why did I say Monday? Feels like a Monday today for some reason,
Kind of does,
and that's
yeah.
why I look forward to the show so much. Is to I know when we hit this show that things are going to be good for the rest of the week.
I agree. And speaking of good things, William Lindis is on the show with us as well. Hey, Will, how the hell are you?
Hey, doing great, Brad. Doing great, Jim. Always fun to be back here, especially as we're in this sort of countdown to South by Southwest. Because not only are we getting a chance to talk about a new movie, what we liked, what we didn't like, kind of go through our normal Tuesday routine, but we're also doing so with the anticipation of like in just a couple of short weeks y'all are going to be down in my neck of the woods and we're going to be watching movie after movie here at South by Southwest. So, um, yeah, this is always an exciting time of year for me because it's movies on movies on movies as part of this. I don't know, this smorgasbord that you guys get to be a part of too.
Yeah, definitely excited for South by. That trip's coming up pretty quick, but it's going to be great to be in Austin. Will hanging out with you and Scott and the puppos and seeing all the movies we can possibly fit into like 9 days or whatever it is we're going to be down there. Cannot wait. Are you pumped, babe?
I am. It's kind of crazy. We're talking about like all this movie stuff coming up for us, and we haven't even mentioned like the Oscars, which a lot of people consider like a big movie time of year, and it's happening kind of right on top of. It's happening kind of the weekend before we head down to South by this year, and yeah, I don't. It's like I don't really care that much about the Oscars this year. Um, I don't know. I just care more about watching good movies and talking about them with you guys. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the Oscars is just kind of a little interesting tidbit off to the side. I don't put a lot of stock in them. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I'm just saying, like, we talking about all the good movie stuff that's happening this year, and we don't even really mention the Oscars, which is kind of awesome. Which means we got a lot going on.
That it does. That it does. Well, it looks like we've got several folks who have jumped into the live stream with
Ooh.
us on Facebook and YouTube and all the ways. Welcome, everyone. Glad to have you with us. As we mentioned at the start of the show, we're going to be reviewing Captain America: Brave New World. We're about to get into it. As we talk about that film, feel free to jump into the chat and say hello. Share your thoughts about the film and we may read some of your comments and thoughts on air as we go. But Jim, Will, I know there's a lot to talk about this one. How do you feel about diving right in?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. As usual, we are going to talk about Captain America: Brave New World, completely spoiler free, for about 15 minutes or so. If you haven't seen the film yet and you're tuning in because you're kind of curious what we think, A, we're honored. Thanks for tuning in. B, we'll give you plenty of warning before we open things up to spoilers. We do want to protect your virginal innocence as much as we can. So, we'll give you that heads up, and you can decide to do what you need to do from there. But all of that said, here we go. Our discussion of Captain America: Brave New World. All right, Jim, if you don't mind, kick this one off for us. I think by now most people know what this movie probably is. But what's our brief setup here? And even more so than that, what are your initial spoiler-free thoughts? Is this worth checking out while it's in theaters, catching on Disney Plus when it eventually makes its way there, or skipping entirely, in your opinion?
Yeah. So Captain America: Brave New World. We saw this movie last night, which was again a Monday night, and one might be one of the favorite things about this movie is that I was able to see it on a Monday night and make my Monday a little brighter. Right when I could see a movie, that's pretty cool on Monday. Anyway, yeah, this is like the fourth MCU movie featuring Captain America, coming after Captain America: The First Avenger in 2011, Captain America: The Winter Soldier in 2014, and Captain America: Civil War that came in 2016. This movie also immediately follows a recent MCU streaming series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think, right? Is that right? The streaming series,
Yes.
which we learned after watching a YouTube Falcon and Winter Soldier in 6 minutes. And I'm not gonna go into too many spoilers about Falcon and the Winter Soldier because number one, I didn't see it. I only watched a 6 minute recap video, and secondly, the only thing I'm going to touch on is kind of how it folds into this movie directly, and that is that that series ended with Sam Wilson, played by Anthony Mackie, becoming the new Captain America. So this movie now sees him fully come into his own as Captain America, as the hero we know and love. So in this film, in a brief synopsis, Sam Wilson, new Captain America, finds himself in the middle of an international incident and must discover the motive behind a nefarious global plan. So that's oh my God, that's probably the synopsis of almost every superhero movie. But this one, boy, it's interesting. I kind of dug some of the original films, and then so going into this one, I felt that I had kind of enough Captain America in my life, but Marvel apparently didn't think so. So they gave us a new movie, and I know there's a lot of Captain America fans out there who were chomping at the bit to see this, and I hope to hear from some of them. My experience was, look, this is a fine movie. This is for a comic book superhero movie. I'm not going to call this a bad movie because I don't think it's a bad movie. You folks know that have listened to the show enough by now that I'm superhero comic book stuff isn't really directly in my wheelhouse. And this movie kind of definitely falls into that category. So some of the things that I liked about it, besides that it got me out of the house on a Monday night, was I thought it kind of had a kind of a weird, I don't know if it was the projection where we were, but it's kind of a dull, off-looking digital kind of, cinematography that didn't really jump off the screen, didn't really do much. Visually, I didn't think it was that great, to be honest. There was a scene in the film that is like an aerial dogfight, I guess, if you will, between jets and superheroes and shit. And movies like Top Gun Maverick do it for some reason. We're able to do it way better. And I don't know if that's because Top Gun Maverick used real planes and took real photography in the sky versus CGI. That may be one of the issues in terms of how the film looked. I think the film has a villain problem, and we'll get into that more in spoilers. I love Tim Blake Nelson, who's in this film and plays a character named Samuel Stearns. I just had problems with the villain's motivation in this film. I kept asking myself, okay, why are you doing what you're doing? I'm not sure I fully understand it. And we could talk about that a little bit more. Also, the film stars we mentioned Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, Captain America. Harrison Ford is in this one as the President of the United States. Tim Blake Nelson, who I mentioned. The standout for me, acting-wise, was Carl Lumbly, who played Isaiah Bradley. I thought he did a really wonderful job here. Harrison Ford, I think, was fine. He's okay. He's basically playing a similar character to like what we saw like if you took the shrinking guy and made him president, that's kind of who he was in this in this movie. But other than that, I don't know. I didn't see much that grabbed my attention. It's a fine movie. I'm going to recommend it only to MCU hardcore fans and those fans who are just jonesing to see kind of this new chapter of Captain America. This being kind of like the first, or well, the fourth movie. I don't know how many more we're going to get. It's likely we will, depending on how this performs and what happens with the MCU. But yeah, this one was just okay for me.
All right. Well, Jim, thanks so much for sharing your initial thoughts with us about this movie. We'll definitely dive a little deeper in spoilers, but let's head on over to Will. Will, you are the biggest Marvel fan on the show. Super curious what you think about this one. Of course, spoiler free. What did you think?
I had a really good time with it. So for me, when the Marvel films work best, it's a superhero template that gets laid on top of another genre. And there are some obvious exceptions to that. The kind of the core Avengers films are always the superhero films, but you get a lot of films in between where it's like it's a rom-com but a superhero one, or in this case it's a political thriller but with the superhero trappings on top of it. And from that perspective, I think it accomplishes everything, not only that it set out to do, but that I was really wanting it to do. It gave me that political intrigue where, yes, there was superheroics and fights, but it kind of falls from the same in the same category of like you're wondering who's going to be moving the political power forward or political power backwards, or who's got control of the ball, so to speak, in terms of like the upper hand. We got to see all of that as the Captain America character here. Sam Wilson is sort of going between sort of conflict to conflict, figuring out how these separate, disparate things sort of tie together, realizing what the grander plot is, and realizing what he has to do to counter that bigger plot, which is exactly what you would want from one of those types of political thrillers. That's what you get in like a Mission Impossible, or that's what you get in like one of those random John Grisham books / adaptations. Sam Wilson, is my favorite Captain America, both in comics and I think now in movie too. I think Chris Evans is an amazing Steve Rogers, and I think that he did an amazing job with that character. But that character is very much a Boy Scout in a lot of ways, and so it's almost like, in some ways, what can be kind of the Superman problem, in that sometimes Superman can be written with such as so shiny and so kind of like undented that he becomes less interesting when written that way. There are obviously exceptions. I love a good Superman story that kind of explores underneath the hood there. Here we get a Sam Wilson who he has something to prove, because he knows that he's not just a representative of his country, but he's a representative of the country that doesn't necessarily want him, because of the color of his skin, let's be honest, to be that icon. I think we get to see that explored here, and through the Isaiah Bradley character, both of which were a big part of the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, and also, that part ties over here very cleanly. The other thing that I think would be helpful, you don't have to have watched everything in the MCU to have watched this, but there is a specific corner of it that I think is helpful. And those two things that I think most help would be to watch the 2008 Hulk film, and because all the villains and all of the storylines are really like transplanted out of that movie with the characters and arcs from the Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of transposed upon them. So those are the two kind of things that I think most bleed into this. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought the action was good. I did enjoy the villains on this one because I think the main villain in this, we've seen the trailers. The main villain is ultimately kind of the Red Hulk, and the way that villain is put into play and the way that is resolved. We'll talk about that in spoilers specifically, but here in the non-spoiler section, I think is a very novel way of resolving that particular issue. One that I think really speaks to the strength of this Captain America that we're seeing now. This movie is done very well box office wise, so we'll probably see another one, and I'd like to see another one. I think Anthony Mackie and kind of this direction of the MCU is probably the direction that I would most like to see further explored, kind of this street level / political level kind of versions of the superheroes. We're going to get all of the multiverse and space travel and all of that stuff. That's coming, but I kind of like these grounded things here where the biggest threat is, you know, if this goes awry, this other country may go to war with us. What does that mean? How do we stop that? And how do the people in charge either make that better or make that worse? That feels very fitting right now when we have that exact same thing playing out where we have an orange Hulk in the White House right now. So, yeah. So anyways, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I would say it's probably a solid, like, you know, B+. There's stronger MCU films on their own, but I think this one I didn't regret a minute of it. Had a blast.
All right. Well, Will, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts too. And you know, comic books are all about crossovers. We're getting a little bit of a crossover right now. D-Geek Will from his fantastic YouTube channel, which if you haven't checked out, you absolutely should, is with us in the live chat. He says, hey, don't mind me, just lurking in the shadows like an evil villain pulling the strings in the background. D-Geek Will, jump out of the shadows, join us. Hello, glad to see you here, Will. Welcome, handsome.
Hey, Will. All right, babe.
All right.
What do you got for us?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. This was not a great film for me. It's entertaining. It's a nonstop, you know, roller coaster ride of action, but there wasn't really a lot here for me. And I think part of that, something that you brought up, Will, without getting into spoilers yet, that 2008 Hulk movie is really kind of a, I guess, like required watching for this, because it had been so long since I had seen that movie. I think I completely forgot all of it. Not only that, but I think the Falcon and Winter Soldier show was required watching for this. Even though we did watch a recap in 4 minutes, I don't think I got enough or understood enough from that and my vague memories of that Hulk movie to form the foundation of what I needed to know here. And I'm just going to be honest with these Marvel movies. I'm getting really tired of having to do so much homework just to enjoy media. One of the reasons that I really appreciate DC Comics right now, and maybe Marvel Comics do this too, but every once in a while, DC like resets their universe. Like you can get in on Superman fresh, and you don't have to know everything that came before. And it's an easy on ramp. And even when like Superman shows up in another comic book, there's like enough explanation that like you can get it and you can go with it. But I've tried to read some Marvel comics sometimes, and it's like, God, so much has happened and so much is referenced that I'm just completely lost. And these movies are starting to get that way for me. And as an adult with a full-time job and, you know, a lot of other things going on outside of work, I don't have the time and energy to do that anymore. So I held on with this movie best I could. I didn't remember a lot of the Hulk stuff. We'll get into spoilers. You know, the background villain and the things that were going on. The movie told me what was happening to some degree, but I was just scratching my head a lot. I enjoyed seeing Red Hulk. He's in the trailers. There's no spoiler that he's part of this film. Main villain, question mark for me. We'll talk more about that. I do love Harrison Ford. It was great to see him show up in this. But I agree with you, Jim. He's pretty much just Paul from Shrinking, but he's in a leadership position here. I do love Anthony Mackie. I think he did a great job with this role. But here's my issue with this. One of the things I love about the Anthony Mackie Captain America is that he doesn't have powers, right? He's just a normal guy with technology. He had the Falcon suit, so he could like fly around and stuff, but like that suit was like destructible. He could get hurt. And in this movie, I found out that like the Wakandans, I guess spoilers for Falcon and Winter Soldier, gave him like a vibranium set of wings and jetpack and suit. And so now he pretty much is mostly indestructible to a point. And so it takes away a lot of the spunkiness, I guess. Like Steve Rogers had the super serum. He's super powered. You know, he's making these quips. He's overconfident because he knows he has these super strong abilities. This Captain America, now he can fly. Now he can be super fast. Now he's mostly indestructible. It's like, where are the stakes for this character at this point? And I wish that he was still more of the like scrappy version of this, I guess. I think the movie does a passable job of kind of taking us on an arc with the character, but I don't know. It just felt really surfacey and not particularly deep for me. So I don't know. Go see this in movies. It's a fun popcorn flick, but guys, I think I'm kind of done with Marvel movies. Even with the Fantastic Four coming out.
No, you're not.
I'll see them for the podcast, but like honestly, I don't have any Marvel movies in particular. I'm not done with Superman. I can't wait for that. But I don't know. Every additional movie I see just kicks me further and further away from Marvel as a film franchise.
So let's talk about that for a second. On two fronts. One, I want to go back to the comic thing that you mentioned. Yeah, both Marvel and DC sort of do that. They reset pretty regularly, like to a almost to a fault, where it's like it becomes, you know, every 5 months they'll kind of reset. Now it's like, oh, instead of Wolverine number 5, now it's Wolverine number 1, because they start over. A new story arc is now a new number 1. DC is doing a really good job with the All In series right now. Which is very, very good. And Marvel's doing a good job right now with them. They've sort of reset their X line, which isn't good. The X comics are not really good right now, but at least they've made them accessible for jumping on. But I want to go to the point about the, kind of the Marvel movies themselves. And I mean, this is a sort of a, how the sausage is made type thing. But we don't even necessarily even have to cover these for the show. What I mean by that is, if you've gotten to the point, Brad, where you're feeling as though when you're going into them, you're not going to enjoy the experience of going into it. I mean, we don't do this for any other reason other than to enjoy it and have fun. So I think we can also look at other things. And then even if I'm still enjoying them, I love the serialization that's happening in here, and they're capturing it in a way that I don't think any other company has really managed to do effectively. I can save that for plugs, and we can talk about something else instead. So I guess, sometimes, we do like to cover kind of the big and the sexy and of whatever it is. But, at the same time, Brad, I don't want to burn you out. If Fantastic Four or Thunderbolts or any of those are not going to be your speed, let's talk about something else. I mean, we're going to have Superman to talk about. We're going to have some things to talk about.
I appreciate that a lot, and I love and adore you, friend, as always. I'm also cognizant of how many fucking Transformers movies you had to watch for this podcast over the years. So
don't
it's like
Fast and Furious
and Fast and Furious, right?
Furious.
So like this is my version of that, and a lot of our friends and a lot of the folks who enjoy our show want to hear what we think about these films. So, it's like, yeah, maybe I don't want to see them for myself personally. I'll still see them for the show. And I appreciate the magnanimous offer of like not having to see them. But I do think a lot of people are feeling similar to me, though, in that like we're 42 movies or something like deep into this franchise right now. That's probably an over exaggeration, but it's like at what point do you like fall off that roller coaster? Maybe it's happened for me, maybe it hasn't happened for you guys yet, but it's just a lot, you know.
You don't. Once you get in the habit of eating oatmeal every day, every bowl of oatmeal, you know what I mean? If you like oatmeal, every bowl of oatmeal you get is going to be oatmeal and you're going to like the oatmeal. So like I'm at the point where though I want something to wow me. I want something to show me something you haven't shown me before. This movie doesn't really do that, but yes, if you want a superhero movie, a lot of bang crash, a superhero and a villain, and in the end maybe the villain wins without really much to to spark your imagination in between, then something like this works. And for the people it works for, I think that's great. They could see these movies a lot and not really get spoiled on them or a little worn out with them. But maybe maybe we're at a point where I don't think it's bad to be at a point where I want a movie to like move me in a way. Move me in some way. Show me, wow me in some way, or move me, or thrill me in some way. I just don't think, and this movie may do that for a lot of people. But I'm just saying, for me, it didn't really do that.
Well, I think
real quick, and Will, I know you've got some comments. I want to hear them. D Geek Willow in the chat says there are 34 Marvel films. ChatGPT just told me 35 plus 12 Marvel Studios produced TV series. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, cool.
It's not 42.
So you were in the ballpark.
I was over exaggerating as usual.
Right.
Yeah, you
so
you were thinking of how many answers there are in the Hitchhiker's universe.
Anyway, Will, what were you going to say, please?
Let's see. I think we were talking about just sort of like what you get out of these movies. And I think part of it really is a matter of if you like serialized stories or not. It's part of the reason why I'm going to give you a very fair comparison to this one. And it's why I do not enjoy kind of what's happening in the Star Wars television shows right now. That's my comparison. With the exception of Skeleton Crew, which like has been the first thing that really made me feel like the first thing since, I'm going to say this, but let's please move on. The first thing since The Last Jedi that I've really enjoyed from Star Wars.
Okay.
And the reason for it is, I know everyone loves the Filoni stuff. It's fucking homework. That's where I'm at with it. Like I've a lot of the Clone Wars stuff. I keep starting it, keep trying to get through, and I keep hearing, by season 3 it gets really good, and I'm like, season 1 is not it. And I know that it's supposed to get there, but it's a lot to get through. So it's really a matter of, but I know, Brad, you have a different experience. I know you really enjoy the Filoni stuff, and I know you enjoy sort of that vibe. And so I think part of it is you have to, with serialization, you have to have something that hooks you. And if it doesn't, it's okay to go off of it. It's why in the comics, they do these reboots all the time, because they realize that if I'm coming into a comic book and I see issue 42 on the shelf, I'm not going to pick that up. But if I see issue 1 on the shelf, I'm going to pick that up. Even though you'll see both DC and Marvel will do this right now. If you pick up right now, I can go to my comic book store and I can pick up Superman number 20 or whatever is currently out. And then right beneath it, it'll say Legacy 1065. And that's like what the actual issue number is, but it's volume 16, issue 20. So it's all a matter of what serialized stories work for you. I've had a hard time getting into Superman comics lately. Because now the super family is so fucking huge that Jesus I don't know Christ. How to get to it. So so all that to say, all of these different pieces of media, serialization as you get further and further into a franchise, when you're 2 films in, 3 films in, 8 films in, 10 films in, there are going to be off ramps, and those are okay because the people that are going to continue to enjoy them further and further down, it's always going to, no matter the quality, it's always going to be a narrowing funnel. It will always be a narrowing funnel with any type of serialization.
I think, and we are going to get into spoilers. I promise everybody, it's coming soon. I'll give you the antithesis to this. Is a movie that came out last year, Transformers 1, right? How sick were we of those fucking Transformers movies that kept coming out that were god awful for the most part? And then all of a sudden you get this thing out of nowhere that kind of resets, right? We talked about the resets. This is kind of a reset where they give us an animated movie, Transformers 1, which was fantastic. They had characters in there that you cared about, right? Animated robotic characters that I cared about way more than I cared about any human character almost in this film. And so it's I don't know. That's what I go to the movies for. You're right. If I'm not bought into the serialization and where we are in the serial process for Captain America at this point, maybe I won't be. Maybe it's too late for them without a reset to give me something that I can latch onto, and that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
I know, like I said, I know there are a lot of people who are going to love these films and continue to love when they keep making them. So, all right, I got that off my chest. Sorry.
Well, that's completely okay, and I agree with both of you. And Will, I'm even there with Star Wars at this point. And interestingly, both Star Wars and Marvel are owned by the same company. I think maybe it's just like blow it all up and start over if you're going to keep making these movies, but it's just too much. The price for the vacation is just too much at this point.
I think the problem we run into, for me at least, with the blow it up and start over is that if we blow it up and start over, we're going to go back to legacy characters. And I think we'll go back to classic Cap, classic Thor, classic some of those types of things. And that to me is, personally for me, that is way more boring than seeing what someone else does with the mantle. Like, this is what's exciting for me, is seeing a crisis counselor who came up through the military and who realizes that the world doesn't want him to be Captain America, still stepping up and trying to be Captain America. That is the more interesting version than a Transformers 1 of this. Transformers 1, I think, worked very well for that. And mileage is going to vary on the statement that I'm about to say, but the other Transformers movies sucked so bad that they could not continue them. Here, we do have these points right now where we're moving forward. And I mean, not to thread this, I liked this. I did like this more than Transformers 1, which I know, because
Oh, good.
Yeah, because for me, the main character and the antagonist character of both were fantastic. I think I just like the supporting characters more in this one. If I'm going to go down the line. But
well, here's the thing. I don't mean this in a sarcastic way. I know that's what this phrase has become, but I really do love that for you, Will. Like, as a comic book nerd and as a movie nerd, I love the confluence of those things, and that it's making you happy and it's keeping you coming back, even if it's not for me. I know a lot of people are super digging it as well. So I think it's fantastic for that. That can happen. But as long as we're fair to have some criticism, I think it's
of course.
all good and gravy. I do want to say, D Geek Will had some thoughts about this film that he shared. I'll put them up on the screen. He says, I think it was fine. Not the best, not the worst, nowhere near the worst, the way the internet would make you think, but it felt safe. So as we go into spoilers here in just a second, that might be something we could unpack a little bit. Oh, corporate speak. That might be something we could explore a little bit. Jim, thank you for that alternate term you suggested to me recently that I remember to use. And probe a little bit more into this, like, safeness. And D Geek Will, if you have some additional thoughts on that, feel free to share this with us. But Jim and our Will, the version of Will from our podcast universe. How do you feel about kicking spoilers off? Are we ready to go?
Yeah, let's fly into this thing.
Let's do it.
All right, then Avengers assemble. Here we go. Spoilers for Captain America Brave New World are happening now. If you're watching the live broadcast on Facebook Live, YouTube, etc., you can tell spoilers are happening because there's a little ticker at the bottom of the screen literally flashing it into your eyeballs while we talk about spoilers about to happen. So if you haven't seen the film yet, you don't want to be spoiled, now's your chance to step away. We are going to be doing plugs this episode, so come on back in about 25 minutes or so, and we're going to put some things on our radar that we love. We think you just might love as well. You're not going to want to miss those if you are listening through the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. By now, by this special time in your life that you're listening to this episode, there is a time index that Jim has lovingly put into the show for you. Click around as needed, skip to plugs, listen, see the film, then come on back to this part of the show. I am done rambling. If people are still here, I guess they're going to hear spoilers, and that's on them. But what do y'all think about D. Geek Will's comment about this movie just feeling kind of middling, like safe? Any thoughts?
Yeah. So I think that when I don't think that that's unfair, because I think that there's sort of two types of stories that you can tell in a franchise. You can tell stories that establish the new status quo, and you could have films that demolish the old status quo. That's sort of the two kind of like pivot points that you can make. This franchise just came off of the demolishing of status quo in the kind of the stuff at the end of Avengers Endgame. We passed the torch from one cap to the other. So this is, and yeah, we had the Falcon and Winter Soldier show to sort of bridge that along, but this is the first sort of film outing for this character. So we have to establish the new status quo before we can blow it up again, right? So in that regards, those films are always going to be safe. It's why the second film in a franchise and in a trilogy is always the most exciting. It's because that's the one where they can say, okay, the first film set the stakes. The second film, we can do some crazy shit. And then the third one, we kind of have to like clean up our mess. So when you think about like all the kind of the great trilogies, a lot of times the second ones are most effective when they nuke stuff. So what I would be wanting to see more of here is, and again, this is unfortunately the problem with serialization. I would want to see whatever the next film in this do something more dramatic to the status quo. But this one really had to get that Captain America in place. And it also had to do so, unfortunately, in a world where there is an audience of fans who were already going to be looking for any reason to scrutinize this one because Disney's making it woke, is unfortunately something that happens whenever a black character or a female character or a queer character makes it anywhere within stone's throw of lead character status. So I think this would really just had to prove, hey guys, this is Captain America and he's here to do Captain America shit. Because of that, they couldn't nuke things as much. Does that maybe hurt the film a little bit? Yeah, I said it. I that's why I gave this one sort of like a B+ instead of, an A+. I think that's where the big shit happens, when we nuke stuff, but we can't nuke it at this point. So I think that was the uphill climb they had to have coming into this film.
Yeah. We talked about that. I mean, Will D Geek Will's comment about this being kind of in the middle. It's like, you want your oatmeal, you want it, this one didn't come with any chocolate chips, it didn't come with any cinnamon or whatever you sprinkle on your oatmeal, at least for me.
Peaches and cream, Jim.
But people who love oatmeal, they loved it. And so what I wanted to get into some specifics, especially since I opened my big mouth and said something about I didn't care for the villains in this. I saw the villain as Samuel Stearns, not the Red Hulk. Am I looking at it? Am I looking at it wrongly?
They are. The villain running things behind the scenes was the Sam Stern's character, but the conflict that really formed the basis for what Sam Wilson had to overcome in this film was both the political, the influential, and the later actual, like, I'm a giant fucking Hulk version of all the things that Ross was putting in his way. So that's why when I say that he's the villain of the film, not necessarily that Ross himself was like the mustache twirling villain, but he was the hurdle. He was the big hurdle. So that's why you kind of have to talk about both when you talk about the villain, because the villain's job in this wasn't to be the hurdle. The villain's job in this was to set up the hurdle in a way that's sort of different than some of the other ones where it's like where Thanos is the villain and you have to fight him.
Yeah. And I definitely see what you're saying. And I agree to some point, but I feel like we spent 3/4 of this movie dealing with the Samuel Stearns character and like manipulating, the president into this
Trying to
almost
assassinate
war,
the
and that,
maybe
and
not.
right, and the imprisonment storyline, and all these things, like bad shit's happening, and we finally deal with him. We finally capture him. He's done. He's good to go. And oh no, the movie's not over. Now it's time to bring in Red Hulk. And that was the thing I wanted to see the movie for. That's the thing that I was really excited about. And it was fun, but it was also like, I don't know, it felt like just 15 minutes. It was like the last part of the movie, except for like, some of the tying little things and bows afterward. And so I felt like I spent this whole movie waiting for Red Hulk, this thing that's all over the trailers. But no, we dealt with this villain that I know nothing about. I guess was he in the 2008 movie? Was that part of like what I didn't? Okay,
yeah, I didn't
so
know,
and maybe that's why I wasn't excited for that villain. I didn't know about him. I just kept thinking of the Thinker from The Flash. Like he seems like the parallel there, and I'm like, this one, gamma radiation. His face looks all funky, but like that's what it is. And then we got to Red Hulk, and then it was over and done, very, very quickly. And I don't know. I just, it didn't work very well for me. It left me really frustrated.
To give you the character, so I don't know if you know this character by this name, but he's that Samuel Stearns character in the comics. He's a Hulk villain called the Leader.
I know some of like the bigger names in Marvel, but I never really got into the comics.
His whole thing is he's got a giant fucking brain, like he's got this giant brain. So he's. I mean, honestly, I think he and the Thinker are kind of like sort of like, how that across these franchises there's always analog characters,
right?
They're very analog characters.
They both ended up in prison at the end, in high security prison, in the same one. I think, right? Because they both had the same. They both had the same like prison uniform on, and it's same type of cell. So that in itself probably sets up the next movie in some way. So you have Harrison Ford now in jail, because he turned into Hulk, and the Red Hulk is bad. Is that why he's in prison? Not because of what he did as Thaddeus Ross.
Kind of both. He stepped down because of the shit that was revealed that he did. But also they're like, but we're going to lock you up because we still don't know if, you're going to go all Red Hulk again. So
well, right. That's what
they meant. Yeah. So go ahead.
But no, that's part of why I was scratching my head at the end, because like, Bruce Banner is he even fucking the Hulk anymore? Did they cure that? I don't even remember. It's been so many movies. But, Bruce Banner became a good Hulk. So, like, why couldn't Thaddeus Ross, who was the president of the motherfucking country, like, become a good Hulk? Why isn't Bruce Banner coming in to, like, help him with his Hulkness? Like, why is he just thrown in a prison cell so that Liv Tyler can show up and give us pouty lip? Like, I don't get it.
Well, this was like this was right around the time that he went to go see Joaquin in the hospital. So this looks like this was like pretty fresh after everything. If they did go on and then all these other things happened, And yeah, D. is right. He's sort of merged. The Hulk character and the Banner character have merged into just sort of one intelligent, in control Hulk version at this point, right? But up until that, he was on the run from the military and was in hiding for a long time. That's why he wasn't in jail, was because he just, Banner just booked it the fuck out of there.
Right, but then he became part of the Avengers and he became a hero, and like Red Hulk could do that. And as long as you keep Harrison Ford from getting too mad, he's not going to Red Hulk out.
And that
right?
could still happen. And but this is like right in the aftermath. Like if we had kind of gone into, and now he's rehabilitated. Now
they're working on the solution. Babe, they're working on the solution, and then they'll let Ross
give him
out.
a therapist. Give him a stress ball.
He's probably getting all that. Like, but if we watch that part of the movie, this would be like another 20 minutes of like, kind of nothing at the end of this, like that.
Hey, Shield. Hey, Thaddeus Ross. It's called a drama llama, and you squeeze it when you're angry, and it makes you feel much better.
Hey, so I had a question again. So Samuel Stern, his motivation during the whole film had not much to do with this treaty, but it had more to do with a personal vendetta against Ross and Red Hulk. Is that right?
100%. He was
okay.
So this
whole treaty thing was nothing really. Like
the treaty was a red herring, as often happens in these political thrillers, right?
Gotcha.
The plot here is like he was after the Hulk movie, he was in prison and he was given all this extra gamma radiation and sort of made to be like the president's sort of like secret like idea man, and I promise you, as soon as I become president, I'll let you go. And as soon as he became president, he did not let him go for a couple of reasons, but one of which was because of the life-saving heart medicines, and also the second part is Ross was using him. And so Stern said, well, you know what? Fuck you. You said you were supposed to do this and you didn't. I'm going to demolish your reputation, and I'm going to do it in such a public way that it ruins you politically, and it ruins you social currency, and it ruins any relationship that you may have with your family. So that's what all of this was. This was a fuck you plot.
So this his motivation was all born in another movie or another series.
No, his motivation was
Did we see that motivation? Did we see all like his going back on his promise to
it's
Stearns
set up in this
that?
movie.
It's all in this movie.
It's part of the 8 exposition dumps we had to explain what was going on.
It's told to us in this movie. It isn't actually, it doesn't actually happen in another movie.
No, it does not happen in another movie.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So real quick, Will in the chat brings up a point I wanted to talk about as well. He says he didn't give a damn about that, but granted, it was the way of introducing adamantium into this universe.
We gotta get adamantium in.
When they started talking about adamantium, Jim turns to me and he says, "Wait, I thought we had adamantium. Like Wolverine is made of adamantium," and that brings a whole nother element of this in, right?
And there I was crossing universes again. Don't cross streams, Jim.
You had the Fox movies and all of that, and now they're working some elements of that into this, and so I'm like, okay, is this set up for bringing the X-Men in? Are we getting like a new Wolverine with adamantium coming in, or are they? I don't know. I'm even more confused about that. D Geek Will or William Lindis, do you have any thoughts?
This is why I love having Will. We have double Will today. Usually, Will, I love having you because you are the one to set me straight when I have these really dumb, basic questions about kind of the lore of some of these franchises. So I sincerely mean it, Will. Like you save me, you put things straight in my mind sometimes. Well, not straight. That's probably the wrong word. But like, you get me on the right track. Yeah.
Not the. So there's the only thing that we really get kind of in the stinger about this is the Samuel Stern's character basically hints the
others are coming.
The others are coming, which really is him kind of doing probabilities about something, right? So what he's doing is he's guessing about something that we've already seen at the end of the Marvels, when the Monica Rambeau character, not Monica Rambeau, but the Spectrum, which is Monica Rambeau's mother, Maria Rambeau, goes through the portal thing and ends up in the other universe. Sorry, Monica Rambeau goes through and she meets their mother in the other universe. That's right. And Beast is there, and we're sort of like, oh, this is the introduction to the X-Men, right? So what's probably going to happen is some sort of like, and this is a thing that happened in the Fantastic Four comics, just to, I guess, kind of spoil the future of these things. Predominantly through the Fantastic Four stuff and through this comic series called the Illuminati, there was basically this plot where all the smart characters in the Marvel universe realized that there were these two sort of like dimensions that were right next to each other that were about to occupy the same space. And so like the versions of the heroes from each sides of them had to sort of like fight one another to figure out which one was going to get destroyed by the other. Not too unlike kind of what you might have seen in like one of the Infinite Crisis things in DC, Brad. So more than likely, we've got the X-Men characters are in some other alternate dimension, stuff like that. And that's what the leader was referring to at the end of this, that there's going to be like, yeah, probably something comparing the others, the people from the other side. And why did they introduce adamantium in this one? Just to get it on the table. Because once it's on the table, then you can put another thing for people to fight over, for mutants to be very interested in.
It's a franchise building.
It's even more destructible than vibranium.
Yeah, it's what you're doing is anytime you introduce stuff like this, you're throwing additional canisters of gasoline in. And so that, you want those canisters of gasoline so that when you strike the right matches, you can start seeing some of those explosions. But it's one of those things where, because this is a franchise, we can look and see the bomb under the table in this movie, but it doesn't have to go off till next movie, as opposed to, the bomb's under the table and goes off in the same movie. So that's really what this is doing. It's setting the table for that's my hunch is kind of what's going to happen. I would guess the Fantastic Four stuff is probably also going to deal with that Fantastic Four from another dimension and then cross over into the main one by the end of it. That's my money on the table guess. I don't know. We'll find out. But I think that's where we're really getting to there with the adamantium.
Okay. I don't remember. I don't actually. I must have forgotten the 2008 movie too, babe, because I really don't remember much about Red Hulk at all.
And Red Hulk wasn't in the first. It wasn't. So all you had to know from the 2008 one was Thaddeus Ross was the general who was going after the Hulk, Bruce Banner, who fought the Abomination, who is the big villain in that.
Real quick, that was the Edward Norton Hulk movie, Jim. If that helps.
Gotcha.
Okay. Ed Norton, not the Ang Lee one with Jennifer Connelly.
Right.
This one had Liv Tyler as the Betty Ross. So really,
Pete Seeger Ed Norton. Not Pete Seeger Ed Norton.
No.
That's another
all you have to know from the first one is Bruce Banner had a relationship with Betty Ross, whose father was Thaddeus Ross, who was the military man that was coming after them. And at the end of the movie, this mad scientist who was sort of helping to do some of the bad shit got gamma radiated, and it caused his brain to swell quite a bit. We didn't get to really see him do anything with that. That was just sort of like at the end of the movie that happened. Mm-hmm. And that's so all that it did was it sort of like set the table for those characters, but none of the it set the stakes for like who the Ross character was at his most aggressive, which was like the military man who would stop at nothing to blow up the Hulk, and say, well, what do you have when you have as he calls himself, a wartime president, or stepping into a spot that is not necessarily a war type situation? Is he going to be the guy that tries to negotiate with things, or is he going to be the guy that hits the blow things up button? And that was what I think was most compelling about this movie to me, is seeing a military man in a position of leadership and a kind of like metaphor PTSD through the Red Hulk, as the antagonist for a military crisis counselor. That's what I thought was so good. It set up their different arcs so that when they came together at the end and we solved it basically through talking someone down, it was all of those other things were really just all the stuff with Stearns and all of the stuff with the treaty. It's important because it's the political thriller shit that moves things forward. But at its core, this is a story about two soldiers who took two very different paths in life, and it led them to one trying to talk the other one down from the worst day of his life.
I'm just going to say this. I'm very glad that my microphone is on an articulating arm at this point, because I feel so beleaguered by all this. I had to just sit back in my chair and relax for a second because I just feel beat the fuck down by all this.
Just keep the microphone close to your mouth so we can,
regardless
of how you feel.
That's why I'm glad for the art. That's why I'm glad for the articulating arm. That's why I said that. Yeah.
I will say,
I have another.
Go ahead, babe.
I had another question.
Go ahead. Get your thought.
Is the Captain America suit itself made with vibranium? Because his wings got or one of the wings got tore off, but he got punched and smacked and hit several times by Red Hulk, and all he had was a broken arm and a little trickle of blood and a bruise. So did the suit protect his body or something? Because they made a point of saying he didn't take a super serum and he wished that he had, but he didn't seem to get hurt very much. And I'm trying to figure out how that's possible.
That's a reinforced suit. The vibranium part was just, I think, the helmet and the wings, because they were the ones that had the little purple kind of Wakandan tech energy field around them. We only saw that around the wings and around the helmet when he was trying to crush the helmet.
Okay. So how did he get fucking punched in the chest and not have his whole chest cave in by Red Hulk?
It's reinforced.
Reinforced suit, I mean,
it's strong rubber.
I guess the alternative is, did we want to see that?
I don't know. Okay. All right. It's a movie. Whatever. Carry on.
Oh boy. I think we broke Brad.
Anyway. All right. Well, we do have some plugs to get to, but were there any final thoughts on Captain America Brave New World before we head in that direction?
No, I did want to say, regardless of what I thought of the villain character, it's always nice to see Tim Blake Nelson show up. He's one of those actors, we all have these actors that when they show up and stuff, they're like, oh shit, it's that guy. And Tim Blake Nelson is one of those guys for me. He doesn't get in a lot of stuff, but when he does, I tend to take notice. So it was good to see him. The Joaquin Torres character, I wasn't sure what to think about. Are they doing something with that character? Is he going to be a continuing, is he a sidekick character, you think?
Yeah. I mean, that's
Captain America.
He is. So the comics right now, Captain America, Sam Wilson, and his sidekick is Joaquin Torres, the Falcon. So it's sort of the same thing that's happening in the comics.
Yeah.
And the Joaquin character is a slider sidekick. You don't have he's not doing the heavy lifting in a Captain America book. He's there just kind of to support and give someone to for the character to sort of bounce ideas off of. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. All right.
D. Will says he believes the suit itself is made of vibranium. I don't know that the movie specifically called that out. Maybe it's a comics thing. I'm not sure.
It's not in the comics. It's not a vibranium thing. So it's just whatever.
It's not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was pulled from the comics.
Yeah.
All right. Well, are we ready to get to some plugs?
I am.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I got a good one.
Oh, good. We would.
It feels good. It feels really good.
I mean, we would just end the show, but plugs, plugs have to happen, especially if they feel good. Jim, butt plugs, totally. have to be a thing. I know we just
Yeah.
want an excuse
Yeah.
to say butt plugs, but you know what? We don't even need an excuse. Butt
No, we don't.
plugs.
Yeah.
It's our show. We say what we want. Anyway, plugs is the part of the show where things that we love are things we want to talk about and put on your radar in hopes that you love them too. Will, if you don't mind, why don't you start us off with our plug section this week? What's yours?
So my plug is a comedy that I caught in theaters. It's been out for a few weeks now. So I have a feeling this one. In fact, I know for a fact this one is actually at the same time that it's slowing down in theaters. You can also like it's at the point where like on Apple TV or and Prime Video, you can like 1999 rent it. So it's kind of already at that stage of its life cycle. So it'll be like home streamable soon. But it's a comedy called One of Them Days. And this stars Kiki Palmer and SZA, who we recently saw at the Super Bowl halftime show. And this is a buddy comedy about these two women. They're best friends, they're roommates, and they are living paycheck to paycheck. You know, the Kiki Palmer character is like she's going up for promotion at this diner she works at, but you know they really are just trying to scrap and make ends meet. Well, the day that their rent is due, the SZA's character has a shitty boyfriend who decides to spend all of their rent money on something instead of turning it over to the landlord, and so they have until X o'clock at that day to get enough money to pay their rent or their stuff's going to be on the curb. And so it's one of those sort of like a day in the life of everything that could go wrong does go wrong for these two women as they're trying to like, you know, navigate this kind of like a very specific situation. Kiki Palmer and SZA have great chemistry. This is a funny film. Like the situations they kept finding themselves in were really funny. I mean, it's definitely so the director of this, Lawrence Lamont, this is his first feature film, and I think that it shows in some ways in that like this isn't a film. This is a guy that's directed a lot of music videos and sort of like and television shows that were sort of about music. So there is a punchiness to some of the jokes that really feels like it carries over from some of that. And so I don't think this is going to be one of those films that you're going to walk away from saying like, oh, this guy reinvented what it is to do like comedies. But this is a good, effective buddy comedy where the jokes land. The characters are interesting. There's enough of a kind of like a storyline about what their wants are and how those things conflict with one another at the same time that they're pulling together on a few things to keep you invested in between all of just the kind of the wacky shit that they find themselves in. So I really liked One of Them Days. I'm looking forward to seeing more from SZA, to be honest. I love her as a musician, but hadn't really seen her act in anything before. In fact, yeah, I'm looking at her IMDb right now, and all she's acted in before this has been like her music videos. So I was really impressed with her and want to see her in more. And Kiki Palmer's always a delight. I mean, she's just got one of those smiles that just is made for the big screen. So One of Them Days, really, really good watch.
Awesome. Haven't caught up with that one yet.
Well, now maybe we have to.
Well, it's coming to streaming, so
Yeah,
I think we'll get it. One of the things I wanted to talk about is my turn.
It is your turn. Absolutely, go for it.
Okay. All right. I'll go for it. I wanted to talk about a movie that I wasn't super excited to see, and I kind of put it off. Then I saw there was a lot of buzz about it, and then our very own Will Lindis wrote a review on it, which is on our website right now. If you'd like to read one of our amazing written reviews that are out there, and so I became more and more curious about it. I'm a kind of a music geek, music nerd. This movie is a complete unknown. This is basically the story of the early days of Bob Dylan's burgeoning career, from when he's like a 19-year-old kid coming onto the folk music scene in the country back in the early 60s. I didn't know that about the film. I thought it was just kind of a soup to nuts biopic, from early days through now. And yes, this is a biopic, but it does focus on a particular era of Bob Dylan's career, which I think is to me, maybe the most interesting. When you start seeing what a great songwriter he is, what a great poet he is. Um, you know, I don't think he's known necessarily for his musical chops, but he's more known for his writing. He's written songs that have been recorded across the board by so many people. I really like this. Timothy Chalamet plays Bob Dylan and does a fantastic job. I think he's nominated, and I think he's probably going to be the front runner for Best Actor, maybe. So we'll see about that. I was super impressed with him. I mean, we've seen a lot of Timothy Chalamet from Call Me by Your Name, through Willy Wonka, which wasn't great. We didn't care so much for the movie, but he definitely threw himself into this role, and you could see the work that he put in. He was singing. He did sing these songs in this movie, and that to me is pretty incredible. So yeah, I really liked A Complete Unknown. I don't know if it's streaming quite yet. It was just in theaters or is just in theaters. I think they're holding off probably till the Oscars to see what happens. Maybe it'll get another run if they do well at the Oscars. But yeah, directed and written by James Mangold, starring Timothy Chalamet. Elle Fanning is also in this one, does a great job. We mentioned Ed Norton earlier in our review of
Right.
Captain America Brave New World. He plays Pete Seeger in this movie. Pete Seeger is another very well-known folk musician from the time. Anybody into folk music will know that name. And I think Ed Norton does a fantastic job in this film. I'd love to see him get attention for his supporting role in this. So, yeah, it's A Complete Unknown. I think it's totally worth it if you want to catch up with it. It's not really the slog that you might think it is, being a biopic about a 60s folk musician. It's a really cool movie, really great performances. The music, of course, is powerful and timeless, so check it out.
Yeah, you're right in that. I think this is a 2-horse race when we get to the Oscars between Chalamet and Adrian Brody for Best Actor. I don't think the others in the category are going to have much of a betting chance. Even though, I mean, my pick in it would have been Coleman Domingo, who is nominated, but he's not going to get it for Kim Sing. He's not going to get it.
He's amazing. So good.
He's always amazing. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be Brody or Chalamet up there with that statue, and so it could kind of fall either way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, it was kind of a double plug for the film that you saw, Jim, but also for Will's fantastic review. Make sure to head to moviebearspodcast.com. Check out the written review section. You don't want to miss that either. Hey, real quick, Ben says, howdy, handsome bears, from cold, icy, snowy Oklahoma. Ben, wish we were there to cuddle you and keep you warm, but it makes us feel warm in our hearts to see you pop up on the show. Hello. Well,
hey, Ben.
Not excited about snow, ice, and cold, but cuddling, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I'll close this out for plugs this week. I don't think I actually have plugged this because we've been doing like a marathon of episodes where we talk about like 20 plus movies. We're finally coming out of that for a little bit before we get into our South by stuff in a couple weeks, which you can be damn sure we're going to be talking about a ton of phenomenal movies then. But this is actually a TV show. We can plug TV shows and other media in our butt plug section, so it's fair. And I want to plug Dexter Original Sin, which is the prequel series to the Michael C. Hall Dexter series that ran in the early 2000s. I think it wrapped up around like 2008. I was a little dubious about a prequel series. I hate prequels in general, but I have to say this season, which just wrapped up at the end of last week relative to when we're recording this, was fucking phenomenal. Probably the best season of TV I've seen in a really, really fucking long time. The actors that they got to play their characters from the original show, just like 15 years younger, are fantastic, including Dexter himself. Unlike the sequel series they did a few years ago with Michael C. Hall, this show is set in Miami. It's all about like the journey to become the Dexter that we know and love. It's got the quirky fun. It's got the music from the original series and new music and motifs built off of that. It's just a really, really fun ride. So I know a lot of people, because the Dexter sequel series, New Blood, wasn't really that great, decided they weren't going to even give Original Sin a chance. But from a huge Dexter fan, I'm just going to let you know, I thought it was incredible. I hope you enjoy it too. It's all available on Paramount Plus right now. It's like 10 episodes. You can binge that over a weekend. It fucking rocks. I hope you enjoy it.
Good to know. I'm one of those people who kind of backburnered this out of. I hadn't seen the other Dexter series. I've only seen kind of the main series of it all, and by the end of that, I was like, I don't need any more Dexter. But hearing this from you, I'm glad you sliced into this one. I may have to slide in and give it a try myself.
Well, I hope you enjoy it.
Wanted to do that.
I did. That was the whole reason.
Yeah,
it's great seeing Christian Slater again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
he plays the younger version of Dexter's dad, Harry Morgan, in this show.
Yeah.
Also, Buffy herself, Sarah Michelle Gellar, is on this season of the show, which is very cool too.
Yeah.
So, anyway, well, a few housekeeping items, and then we're going to let you know how you can chat with us if you would like to do so in between recordings. We'll just run down the schedule over the next month with you. Next week, February 25th, 2025, William Lindis is going to be hosting the Movie Bears podcast for a very special episode. Yeah. The guys know that I love to watch The Princess Bride around my birthday every year, which just happens to fall on the 25th. And Will was like, Brad, you should get drunk. I'll host the episode and we'll talk about the film and that can be fun. And I thought he was kidding. And then Jim jumped on board and I was like, all right, I guess this is happening. So Will, can't wait to hand the reins over to you. And after the week I'm already having and anticipate next week, I'm going to be ready.
You just get to enjoy the movie and enjoy the experience of talking about the movie. We'll handle the rest.
All right. Well, I appreciate y'all very much.
Hope you could still see the movie by the time we finish.
Well, we're gonna watch the movie before we do the recording. Probably watch it over the weekend, and then it'll be fun to hop on and do that with you fellas. And then March 4th would be our normal recording Tuesday. Will is traveling for work that week, and we've got some stuff going on, so we'll be off there. And then March 11th, we're going to be in Austin, Texas with Will doing our movie festival thing. We'll be back the week after that, March 18th, with the first of our South by Southwest centered episodes. We'll be bringing you a whole bunch of news and reviews from the film festival. We usually have 2, 3, 4 episodes with South by content, usually paired with other like bigger release films that everyone can see. We don't have that schedule quite worked out yet, but I know a lot of people follow us week to week, and we've had some requests to kind of know what's coming up with South by about to happen. So there you go. That's the schedule. But if you want to chat with us in and around our next few recordings, probably when I'm not drunk, let's talk a little bit about how you can interface with us. Jim, where can people find you online?
I'm on Letterboxd. That's the cool app website where I and all of us actually log and rate movies as we see them, or almost as we see them. I know there may be a slight backlog, but it's called Letterboxd, And you can find me on there at JJP Out West. See how I've rated a bunch of movies, recent movies, all the way back a few years, and check that out. And all through South by Southwest, we'll be doing that too. Also find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico. I'm on there once in a while. I'll rage post. Sorry for the political rage posts, but seems to be the season for that these days. I try to control myself, but it's very difficult at this time.
There is nothing wrong with raging against atrocities. You don't have to apologize for that.
No. Just question whether you're shouting into the void or not.
I mean, there's two things. You can shout into the void, or you can stare silently into the void. At least one of them is there's an active chance that someone might hear.
Now I want to see Harrison Ford's Republican Red Hulk against Jim's Democratic Blue Hulk. I want to see that fight. That would be
Blue
amazing.
Hulk. Nice. That's my new. It's going to be my new. When I create a new profile on Blue Sky, that's what I'll do.
There you go, Blue Hulk. I love it.
Blue Hulk.
All right. Will, how about you? Where can people get in touch?
There's a couple of main places. I'm on Facebook. Look for William Lindis. I post a lot of stuff there about my life, about movies, about just all the things that I'm doing. So that's the best place to just generally socialize with me. I'm also on Blue Sky. I sort of curate some of kind of a few key posts over there. I don't post as much as I do on Facebook, but I do basically about anything kind of related to like the media that I enjoy goes over on Blue Sky. A lot of movies, a lot of comic books, stuff like that. And then of course, Letterboxd. I'm on there at the Movie Bear, which is also, I didn't mention this. That's where I'm at for Blue Sky. Anything I watch gets logged there. As Jim mentioned, I've got a little bit of a backlog because I saw 20 things in the last week, most of which are short films. So it's not like a real, just full disclaimer, 12 of those were 15-minute to 30-minute shorts. But so sometimes they get backed up a little bit, but but I do log them there, and it's a great place to see the more contextualized version. You can do star ratings there, and I'm guilty of kind of just sometimes slapping a star rating on a few things, but I've been trying to put a few, even if it's just a sentence or two about what I thought about something. So that's the bigger context, because, I don't know, my star rating will be different than your star rating, but maybe what my words say might, lean you one way or the other. But anyway, Letterboxd is a lot of fun. I enjoy it. If you're not on there, you should. It's such a blast to engage with film and kind of see what other people are engaging with there. So anyways, look for me in those three platforms.
All right, rock on. Thanks, Will. And folks, you can find me on Facebook for the moment. I'm still there. Look for Bradley Harris. I've decided to differentiate myself from the Brad Harris who has a Confederate flag once again behind him.
No more Brad Harris.
No more Brad Harris. Look for Bradley with an E. You can also find me on Blue Sky at ibradpro.bsky.social. And you can find me on Letterboxd as well at ibradpro. Sometimes I will write reviews. Usually it's just one sentence thing now, but during South by, we usually write a whole fuck ton of reviews up on our Letterboxd. So if you're curious about those films, we're going to cover a lot of those on the show, but you can find those there as well. And I think that's it, right? We're done. Yeah,
I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jim, Will, this is my favorite part of the week, except for the weekend. I'm so glad we got to get together and do this. D-Geek, Will, Ben, and some of the other folks that were in the live chat with us. Always great hanging out with you. Thanks so much for jumping in. And listen, even if you didn't listen live, you can still be part of the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts on Captain America: Brave New World. Feel free to find us on Facebook, as well as... Are we still doing X? I don't think we are. I think maybe.
I don't think we're.
But
we're not.
Whatever. Go on your favorite podcast app or website and listen to us there. You got the
you
audio
go.
versions. You can watch them on your way to work or on your way home from wherever on a vacation, long
And
road
while
trip.
you're there, we just talked about like how it's sometimes easy to just sort of like watch a thing and kind of throw a couple stars at it, but you know adding a couple of sentences of context can really help. If you're listening to this far, and granted, we're pretty deep into plugs right now, but if you're here and still listening and you're on one of those pod catchers to try to listen to us, pop in and give us a sentence or two as well. Those
Yeah.
reviews really help. They help other people who might have similar taste as you find us as well. And we always love expanding our little bear universe here, because the more the merrier in our little bear pile. So those reviews help a lot. So please tell us if you're enjoying it.
The more the barrier.
The more
Yeah,
the bear. No, well,
that doesn't quite work.
yeah. It doesn't
Yeah,
quite work.
yeah.
Yeah.
I got excited for a bear pun for a second, then I was like,
The
oh
more
shit, no, wait.
the hairier.
Ooh, that's good. I love that.
There we go.
So good. All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Love to you all. We will see you next week. I'll be smashed drunk, probably. I might remember you, I might not. We'll see how drunk the guys get me while we chat. But can't wait for some fun with y'all. So see you then. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane. See y'all later. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.